Hey guys, thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from what we normally do. So if you'd like to see what it is, stick around. I'll be right back. So today we're doing a smaller project than what we normally do because I've got something much larger in the works and I don't want you to have to be kept waiting around for my next video like you did the last one. I know that a lot of you guys that watch these types of videos tend to be quite interested in the processes involved in making an everyday typical piece of jewelry. So today we're going to focus on a smaller project. And I'm going to try to go through most of the processes with you. Now, this video isn't going to be fully comprehensive of all the steps involved in making a piece of jewelry, but it should give you guys a really good understanding on what is actually involved. So today, what we'll be making is going to be a wedding style band. Nothing too complex, really simple, easy to follow. Like I said, I've got something else going on right now and it's taking up a lot of the time. I just want this to be kind of like a halfway point between my last video and the next one. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and yeah. So what you just saw there was me taking some scrap material, melting it down to an ingot. From here what I'm going to do is I'm going to saw off what I don't need, tidy it up, file off the edges, and pass it through the mill, which is going to basically stretch it out and put it into a more workable shape. So me getting into jewelry was a bit of an accident, really. When I planned on proposing to my wife, someone suggested doing something rather unique and hiring someone to making my rings for us, and I thought that sounded pretty cool. And then I had the crazy idea to do something even a bit more unique and make the rings myself, and I just fell into a massive rabbit hole pertaining to the entire world of jewelry, and I haven't looked back since. You know, with doing things like this, accidents obviously happen. I remember one time I was working on a really big project for a customer over in the States, and I absolutely ripped through my thumb. The saw blade broke on one of the downstrokes, and because they're like needles essentially, it dug down into my thumb and went through into the knuckle. Getting that out was a challenge, and but you know, I had to get the job done. So I basically poured vodka in it, wrapped myself up in duct tape, and kept going. I swear, jewelers come up with the most original, unique ways of stitching themselves back together when they really have to get something done. No rest for the wicked, as they say. Alright, so now that's done, it's time to pass this through the mill here. It'll start to squeeze it down into a more recognizable profile. This is undoubtedly one of the longest processes, I find anyway. So every time you pass through it, the rolling mill, it reduces the overall width of the piece by probably anywhere from 1/10 to 1/5 of a millimeter. You obviously want to do it slow. If you do it too quickly, you can either over reduce the piece that you're working on, and even crack the metal. Every time you pass it through the mill, it becomes compressed and stretched, increasing its overall hardness, and eventually it'll get to a point where it becomes so stiff that the metal will crack or start to split or splinter along the sides. And when that happens, you basically stop, heat it up, which is called annealing. You heat it up until the metal becomes like a dull glowing red, quench it, and then start from scratch. And that's what we're gonna do right now. Now that that's done, that takes us on to our next part, which is then passing this square wire through a D-shaped groove in the mill. And that's what produces that traditionally styled wedding band look. As I said before, I really hate this part. But when it's done being shaped into that D profile, we're done with the mill. Right, so we're finally done with the mill, and what we're left with is a nice long cut of D-shaped wire. So the next step is to take your wire and wrap it around a mandrel to get the actual shape of a ring. So you can form it around by hand. It's been annealed, so it's not that hard. And then once you've got it to the desired size, you can measure out how much you need to cut off, do that, file it up, clean it up, solder it, and then we're done. Right, so now that the ring's been cut, we need to go in with the files and clean up some of these inside edges here, or we're not going to get a clean join when we go to solder the ring together. So apart from all the instances where you slice yourself open, burn yourself, cut yourself, poke yourself, I find that making jewelry is actually quite therapeutic. So now that we've finally got our ring in its ring shape, all we need to do now is put some flux on it, which is basically a solution that keeps the surface from oxidizing and becoming dirty. Because when you try to solder something together, the solder will not adhere or flow on surfaces that are contaminated. Now I'm just going to place a pallet of solder on the ring joint. Right, so the ring is soldered closed. And all we have to do now is file it up, clean it, polish it, and we're done. As you're filing a D-shaped ring, which, as I said, is the typical wedding band style ring, it's important to sort of twist or rock your file along so you don't get any straight or flat surfaces in the ring. As long as you twist and curve your file, what it should do is it rocks over the natural curve of the ring and files along that same symmetry. And that should prevent you from getting any flat surfaces on your ring. Now we're just going to clean up the inside. Right, we're on to the last two steps now. The ring itself isn't quite round, it's a little wobbly from all the hammering and plying we did to it earlier so we could actually solder it closed. So the next thing we have to do is to slide it back on the mandrel. And from there, we'll be able to take our mallet and actually form it into a perfect circle. So that's us done with the polishing belt. And if you like to take one final step, a bit of a bonus step, is you can use one of these Goddard's polishing cloths. The cool thing about them is they're kind of greasy. So once you use it to polish one of your pieces, you're left with a residue on the piece of jewelry that prevents it from coming into contact with oxygen. It obviously wears off. You can use it again and again and again. So that brings us to the end of that project. It's a little easier than anything else I normally do, but again, the point was to make something smaller so I could sort of demonstrate all the processes behind making a piece of jewelry. So yeah, that's it, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.